Good morning, everyone. I'm Sister Eleanor Francis, and yes, we had a change in schedule after the bulletin went out. Sister Francis will be showing up this afternoon at some point, so she's going to speak on the 15th instead of Swamiji. And there might be, we still have to talk. She's interested in doing a little day-long program, maybe on Saturday the 14th. Which isn't in the bulletin, but Swamiji said if we wanted to do it, slip it in there, to do a day-long, some meditation and some classes on women saints and their practices, poetries, and insights. So talk that up, and if there's enough interest, we'll put that on the schedule for the 14th. So as of tonight's, Sister Eleanor will be here. So if you'd like to see her or make an appointment with her, probably you can just drop in. She's going to be here for about a month. She's on sabbatical from the convent of St. John the Baptist, which is up in New Jersey, actually. And I don't know if you know her story. She used to be a Vedantist nun in California. I thought in San Francisco, but it turns out also in Santa Barbara for a while. And she had such strong Christian samskaras or tendencies in her. She really felt the need to take the Lord's Supper every Sunday and whatnot. And so Swami Prabodhananda and the convent actually helped her find a Christian monastery that would accept her and her beliefs, her universal ideal from Thakur. And I don't know why I'm talking, she's not even here. But anyway, I'm so impressed with her. She came from that all the way up to being the abbotess or the head of the convent up in St. John of the Cross St. John the Baptist in New Jersey. So do get some time with her if you have the opportunity in the next month just to drop in and say hi, have a cup of tea or coffee or go on a walk or whatnot. So I'm covering today and decided to do it exactly 2 days ago. So, yeah. I thought today is going to be a celebration. I want to just, I decided instead of really stressing out and going and trying to quickly throw a talk together, that I really just want to spend a morning together and to talk about what we enjoy, what we have available to us, what this place really represents, what our practice is. You've heard almost everything I ever say before, and so I apologize ahead of time. I'm not going to mention it again. But I want to take a journey that kind of takes life that we call real life, which, it's odd as Vedantins, we still call this real life, even though the real is something that we haven't grasped yet. But to take clues and evidence in everyday living that will help build your faith and your understanding to know that these things are in fact as they are, and that the Vedanta, the oneness of the beloved, the oneness of God, the all-pervasiveness of love is a palpable thing that you can touch and see and witness in yourself, in the world around you, and it's a matter really just of letting go of the old habits of perception, so that you can see that crystalline moment as it is, as it is. So I want to start, of course, with Hafiz, a lovely poem in here that kind of hints at where I'd like this talk to go, with Mother's permission. It says, when you can endure. When the words stop and you can endure the silence that reveals your heart's pain of emptiness, or that great wrenching sweet longing, that is the time to try and listen to what your beloved's eyes most want to say. We always talk that one of the first things that we find out, at least in the Christian Bible for sure, and also in the Rig Veda, is this oneness of God and this idea of God being isness, being this present moment. I think for me this is one of the most valuable tools in the Vedanta toolkit for having a great meditation, for having a great time in practice. That is to sit there when you start and to realize this moment is God. To understand that we're not looking for God, that if you look for God, you'll never find him, because God is never the object. God is always the subject. God is always that which is doing the looking. God is always that which is doing the searching, experiencing the living that you experience. And to sit there in the shrine when you sit down, I remember a time in San Francisco as a brahmachari sitting in the shrine and complaining to Mother that I had already been in the monastery 5 whole years, and I hadn't seen her yet. I hadn't gotten anywhere in spiritual life, and I was quite frustrated with that. And so I was complaining, and I was sitting there and doing my meditation, and the monastery shrine in San Francisco is lovely. It's a robin egg blue room with a beautiful kind of mini shrine, much smaller than this. It sits on the floor, and the windows are 2/3 of the wall, and the sun just pours in there. So you sit in this bright blue room, absolutely quiet. It's in the back of the monastery on the garden, so there's no street noise. There's no disturbance from anywhere. And I was sitting in there and kind of preparing myself to do my practice. And the thought occurred to me. It was almost as if a whisper from a friend just kind of teasingly said in the back of my mind, you know, everything that you need is in the room right now. Everything that you need for your realization is here. It's all ready. It's all laid out for you. And I sat there with that thought. Nothing else came, like what to do or how to do that or how to fix that or how to use it. But I sat there with that idea and just became full of joy of the fact that I didn't have to gather anymore. I didn't have to learn anymore. I didn't have to go find a missing piece anymore. That everything had come together for us, that right now, this moment for you, in this room, in your mind and body right now, is everything necessary for you. You say, well, how come I can't see anything? Because you haven't let go yet. You haven't let go yet. Mother promises us that your realization is yours at any moment, at this moment, if you want it. And so the challenge becomes not to go looking for Mother as if she's missing, as if she's somehow holding herself from us and not giving herself to us. It changes the nature of the practice to go inside and to say, what am I holding on to? What is more important to me right now than my own realization? Because something is, otherwise you would be realized. If that really was what you wanted, Mother says it would be yours. So it's a time to sit there and to say, gosh, if everything is here and this moment is divine, what is left to be done? Maybe I don't even have to go and kind of fix everything up like I think I do. Maybe I'm allowed to sit here and enjoy the presence of God. Maybe I don't have to look for her or him. Maybe I can assume her or him. Maybe I can lean on that presence without knowing. Because the idea is always there that, you know, someone asks, one of the big questions people like to ask is, have you seen God? And the great way to get out of it as a Swami is to say, I've never seen anything but God. Because you tell the truth and you avoid the answer to the question they're looking for. Have you seen God? Never seen anything but the beloved. And to start accepting that, not trying to prove it, not trying to go look for it, not trying to find evidence, but accepting it, understanding it to be true. I have never seen anything but God. You are that. Not just I am that. You know, that's my business, and I get to see that in myself, and when I do, I'll see it in you automatically. But to know that we can share that right now, that we can sit together and look at each other and understand that each of us is a window to God, a window to the beloved. Everything in this moment is available to us. I remember telling you a story my last year in college. I was taking a theater class with Robert Taylor. He was this British, he was great for a theater instructor. He was the very quintessential theater instructor, you know, British and a great presence and really able to command the room and had all of the arm gestures just right all the time. And in the first week of class, he paired us up with each other. We were all strangers to each other. And he took each the pairs, and he would stand us there, and he'd put our toes like 1 inch apart, facing each other, and our hands at our side. And he said, there's very few rules. He said, 1, you cannot talk to each other, cannot say anything to each other. 2, you cannot break eye contact with each other. You cannot move your feet out of the space that they're in right now. And you cannot touch each other. Anything else is fine. Go. So we're standing there, and if you haven't done this, I'm tempted to say, stand up, get a partner. I get myself in trouble enough. So, but if you stand up and get a partner and you look into a stranger's eyes for 15 minutes without breaking eye contact, without saying anything, I can tell you that a very profound atmosphere is generated. In this class of not spiritually oriented people that I know of, there were people that were weeping, there were people that were giggling, there were people that were just almost stoned on the experience of the intimacy that forms just standing and looking into somebody's eyes. It was a very profound moment. And as it was going on, when we'd been there for a while, and I was starting to feel a little bit, I don't know, somewhat uncomfortable, because you can sort of put up your blinders only for so long, where you're kind of keeping somebody out. But when they're making that eye contact steadily and unbreaking for that amount of time, those walls begin to break down, and your performance of self, your little display of who you think you are, starts to falter. You start losing the defensiveness in your eyes. You start the common thoughts that you have when you're talking or looking at a stranger start to dissipate, and you're left there as you, staring and looking at a person who's just you, looking into each other's eyes, beyond the eyes. Like I imagine that a holy man looks at you as, seeing beyond all of the performance pieces that you've got in the front to protect yourself. And after we'd been doing this for a while, he takes this stick, this pointer stick, and he smacks it on the wall, which startled everybody. Bang! 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 And you're sitting there, and each time that thing hits the wall, it just jars through you. You're still maintaining contact, but you're being pulled along. And then he says, after total silence for 10 minutes, every time the stick hits the wall, a moment of your life is gone. You will never have it back. Now, he went on to talk about how the moment, and really this applies to us also, that the moment is the only tool of the actor. He would say that you, as an actor, your job is to become fully aware in the moment so that you can take that moment, fill it with whatever message or story you want to fill it with, and throw it to the audience. That's what you give as an actor. You give the moment back to the audience filled with meaning. Now, that was beautiful. That was a lovely thought. But I walked out of there in need of deep therapy. Because I had this image of like a faucet which was running from a barrel of my life, fully turned on with no spigot to turn it off, running through my hands, uncontrollably, unstoppably. And I was panicking at the idea of watching my life, every moment, being dropped away, second after second, without meaning, without purpose, without knowledge, without knowing what I was or what I was about, what I was supposed to be doing, where I was supposed to be going. What is all of this going on? And it was one of the most profound times in my life, to see my life as the moment, and to realize that all of my energy and attention should be in this moment, because this moment is God, and this moment is all you have. You will die in this moment. Jesus walked in this moment. The Buddha sat and had his realization in this moment, this same moment. This is not one moment of millions. This is the only moment, and it is eternal. It never began, and it never ended. Eternity is not a concept that you have to go searching and rummaging through your mind to think about. Come back to this moment, and this is eternity. This is forever. This never changes. I've had this idea in the last week that I'm trying to develop into a good idea. But it's getting there little by little. I keep coming back to this image, of course this will date me, of a needle on a record player sitting on the LP as the LP is spinning around. And just thinking about that as a metaphor for me, for you, for us, for who we are, that we are that moment where that diamond needle is touching the record. Now, any song can be played. That record player can play rap, it can play country, it can play, folk, it can play pop, and it will do all of it just as well. It's completely not defined. And that needle is the absolute unchanging self. It doesn't move. It just comes down and it sits there. And then a song is played. Now, where is that song played? That song isn't played at the needle. Because in the moment, and I don't know how to describe this, maybe it's not as complex as I think, but in this moment, there's no change. I mean, if you were to take the absolute center of this moment, there would be no change in it. You have to have two moments to have change. So how do you create a second moment if God is one without a second? If you can't experience anything else but the present, how do we get this illusion of change going? We have to make an impression. We have to take a copy of the moment and then compare it to the moment. And we do that constantly. It's just part of our mental makeup. That's how this world unfolds. That's how all of this exists, is your mind taking constant impressions about things in the moment and then holding it, storing it, and comparing everything to it. That's what makes you see change. That's what makes you see movement. That's what makes you have this illusion of being separate from everything else. In that moment, when that needle is sitting on that record player, if you don't spin the record and you just put the needle there, there's nothing. Even though everything is exactly in the right place, there's still just absolute oneness, unchanging oneness. Now you start moving that record and you say, oh, the song plays. No, the song doesn't play. The song doesn't play. Noise is made. Noise is made. But it's just a bunch of scratches in the groove vibrating the diamond needle. What's necessary for a song to be played is Satchit Ananda, your inner nature, the presence of the divine. You see, to give your moment meaning, to have this moment be meaningful, it has no meaning without Satchitananda, without existence, without infinite intelligence, and without infinite Ananda, bliss or love. The world has no meaning. This moment has no meaning. Your life has no story. It's just noise. Just noise. It's just sensual input, thought running. It's just noise, and none of it means a single thing. You cannot decode it into meaning without intelligence, without love, and without existence. It's the presence of God that provides all three of those things to you. Your mind, if God was not there, would just be like white noise to you. You would have no way of decoding its meaning because you have no intelligence apart from God. You have no existence apart from the beloved, so even the white noise would not be present to you. There is no meaning in the world of the senses. There is no meaning in this external world, which the sages say there's not even an external world, that all of this is happening within you. All of this is going on within your own mind, just like your dream last night. It's all within your own mind. And the only thing giving it any meaning at all is the fact that it's reflecting off of God. That it's reflecting off of God. And you can have a very real experience of that by paying attention to the whole process. I've talked about this a few times this week. I'm very excited about this idea. Who is it that listens to your thoughts? Like right now, you've got thinking going through your head, do you not? I imagine. You're hearing words, even listening to the words. Go inside for a minute and notice that everything is being presented to you. All of your senses bring you the information and present it to you. All of your thoughts are being presented to you. You're watching them happen. You are what? Where are you in there? You can say, "Oh, I'm the one listening." Are you? Are you? You don't seem to be able to control thought, right? You can't determine what your next thought's going to be. Every thought directly follows the one previous to it, interrelated. It can't break the cycle. You cannot have an original thought. You cannot have an original moment. It's the rolling of the wheel of samsara, set in motion for this life at your birth. And it's rolling down a hill, and you're watching it. And it's playing your song, playing your life. Swamiji, let's jump into some Swamiji here. He says, if you dare to declare that you are free this moment. Now, interesting how he says that. If you dare declare that you are free, what's daring in deciding that you're free? For that, you have to think a moment for what freedom is. What is freedom? What is it? Anybody want to throw out an idea? Take a big risk? No sense of bondage, that's true. No sense of bondage. But what is bondage? Renunciation is freedom. Yeah, it is in many ways, unless you're not into it. Yeah, it's interesting, because the other morning I was getting ready for the day, and I was having this idea of being free in the moment, and I was kind of actually washing my hair, and I was saying, "You're free. You're absolutely free. This is not you. This is not you. You're absolutely free." And of course, the first thought that always comes to your mind when you think I'm free is what? I can do whatever I want. That's our notion of freedom as bound souls. I can obey my desire. To us, that's freedom. And I thought to myself, is that really freedom? Because I'm being presented with a desire. It's not my desire. I'm being presented with a desire from my mind or from my body. The two of them work together to keep a constant stream of desires coming. Where is it coming from? It's not me, it's being presented to me. So it can't be me. It can't be I want. Who am I to want? It's all being presented. So how can I find freedom by being the slave to desires that are being presented to me from who knows where? I don't know where they're coming from. Just a whole string of them. So freedom is not the freedom to do whatever you want, it's the freedom to not want. And what does that imply? One of the greatest truths of the Vedanta, that this moment is perfect, just as it is. And you are free to enjoy it. You are free to open up as wide as you want to let it in. To be free of any projection, any need to decorate it, any need to improve it, any need to shine it up, letting it be as it is, perfect, with nothing. If you say you are bound, bound you will remain. This is what Advaita boldly declares. I have told you the ideas of the dualists. You can take whichever you like. If this room is full of darkness for thousands of years, and you come in and and a ghost tells us that, bring in the light and the evil goes in a moment. Build your character and manifest your real nature, the effulgent, the resplendent, the ever pure. Call it up in everyone that you see. I wish that every one of us had come to such a state that even in the vilest of human beings, we could see the real self within. All right, that's very important. Notice he says that each of us would come to such a state that even in the vilest of human beings, we could see the real self within. You see, he doesn't say that it's the work of the other person to manifest the real self so that you can see it and see them as a great human being, if you're seeing wrong things in the world, if you're seeing things you don't like in the world, it's because of the impurities within you. Because the world simply is. It's a manifestation, perfect, of the divine. It does not have a value plus or minus until it touches you, until it meets your attachments, until it meets your judgments, until it meets your body and your mind, which will place requirements on it. You know, your body will say, God, it's a little bit warm in here. We need to bring that temperature down. The mind comes in and says, God, I'm feeling a little bit lonely right now. I'd like some company. You know, it sits there and presents, and you see the moment not as perfect, but you measure it according to your impressions that then excite your desires and help you to see what's wrong with the moment, what needs to be fixed in the moment. Sri Nisargadatta says that's the only difference between a saint and a sinner. He said the sinner is always trying to improve the moment, always trying to make your house nicer, always trying to make the bed cleaner, fewer wrinkles in your clothes, whatever it is. But the saint sees the moment as perfect, sees no need to impose his will or his ego or his definition of what needs to be done and how it should be done to be perfect. It's an act of surrender. You define the world as perfect, and then you accept it as it is. And in doing so, what happens? That ego is eliminated, and that beloved within you begins to manifest. Your nature begins to shine. And Vivekananda is saying, I wish that every one of us had that state of mind. I wish that every one of us had to come to such a state that even in the vilest of human beings, we could see the real self within, and instead of condemning them, say, rise, you effulgent one. Rise, you who are always pure. Rise, you who are birthless and deathless. Rise, Almighty, and manifest your true nature. These little manifestations do not befit you. This is the highest prayer that the Advaita teaches. This is the one prayer, to remember our true nature, the God who is always within us, thinking of it always as infinite, always as almighty, always as ever good, ever beneficent, ever selfless, ever bereft of all limitation. And because that nature is selfless, it is strong, it is fearless. For only to selfishness comes fear. He who has nothing to desire for himself, whom does he fear, and what can frighten him? What fear has death for him? What fear has evil for him? This is what Swamiji is daring us to do this morning. This is the dare for you. If you dare, declare that you are free. And we think, oh, but I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I'm so impure, and I can't control my mind, and I'm so selfish, and we all run around with a constant litany of what's wrong with us. We all run around constantly bemoaning the fact that we can't meditate and we can't pray. But the Master says, if a pea falls into filth, it grows into a pea plant nonetheless. Right? Doesn't matter, whatever circumstance your life is in, you are the nature of God. Bloom where you are. Don't feel like I need different soil, I need more money, I need another house, I need more vacation, I need to be in the mountains, I need to, be on the beach, I need more holy company, I need less holy company. Whatever you think, it's not the case. The fact is, this moment right now for you holds your realization. There is not going to be anything different in the moment that you have realization than what is in your moment circumstantially right now. It will be simply you laying down whatever it is that you're holding on to that prevents you from seeing this infinite, ever free, ever pure, ever perfect moment. M replies to the master when he says that a pea falls into filth, it still grows into a pea plant. He says, yeah, but there's still the 8 bonds. Yeah, but there's still these things holding us down. And the master says, oh, they're not 8 bonds, but 8 fetters. But what if they are? These fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. These fetters fall off in a moment by the grace of God. This is another one of those little screwdrivers of truth that's really great to have in your meditation toolkit when you're sitting there. And you realize, you know what? It says that all of my fetters, all of my chains that are holding me down, all the complaints of why I can't do this, can fall off in a moment because I'm working really hard at it and because I'm really focusing and I'm going to do something. That's not what he says. They're going to fall off because of the grace of God. And the grace of God is always blowing. So what's the limitation? You're not humble enough to accept it. That's the limitation. You still want to do it yourself. You want to be the one that realizes God. You're going to do it your way, in your definition, with your name on it. That's how it's going to be done. No, it can be done this very moment. It is done this very moment by grace. And my little buzz phrase that I like so much, to accept infinite mercy, you have to have infinite humility. You have to be willing to lay down even what you are to take this up. If you're a gamer, you have to lay down all of your weapons to get room in your inventory to pick up another one, to pick up this one. And nothing else can be in there. He says they're not the 8 bonds, they're the 8 fetters. But what if they are? So what? That's the master's attitude. You can come up here right now and you can sit there in front of Thakur and you can start listing all the reasons that you haven't realized God. I can't meditate, I like this and I like that, and I'm attracted to this and I don't like that. You can go on and on and on, and what's his attitude going to be at the end of that? So what? Get over it. What, you came here to tell me about all your problems, all of your darkness, all of your attachments? He said, I'm sitting here in a world of light, an infinite ocean of life, an infinite ocean of love, purity absolute, existence absolute, no end to it anywhere. It shines like a burning ocean of love. And you want to sit in the middle of this treading water and talking about all of your sin and all of your shortcomings and why you can't do this and why you can't do that? All right, have at it. What can we do? To sit in the ocean of freedom and to talk of bondage. What foolishness is that? If you're in the ocean of light, enjoy the ocean of light. If you're sitting there in your meditation and the mind is wandering and doing all that, and you're sitting there freaking out, I can't control so what? Take that attitude. So what? The mind is wandering. I'm in an ocean of light. I'm in the presence of the beloved. What will you talk about, O mind, in the presence of the beloved, in the presence of infinite love, in the presence of infinite intelligence? What are you going to say? What are you going to complain about? Let it go and be with the beloved. Stop believing all of the untruth of what needs to be done, what has to be accomplished for that to happen, because it comes by grace. Not because you worked hard for it. Give it up. Give that idea up. He says, so what? These fetters, they fall off in a moment by the grace of God. Do you know what it's like? He says, suppose a room has been kept dark for 1,000 years. The moment a man brings light into it, the darkness vanishes. Not little by little. Haven't you seen the magician's feat? He takes a string with many knots and ties one end to something, keeping the other end in his hand. Then he shakes the string once, twice, and immediately all the knots are undone. Not one by one. This isn't a process. This is you treading water until you decide to stop. That's all. You're not climbing a mountain here. You're not attaining something. You're not filling something. You're not fixing something. You are working until the point that you get so tired that you quit. That's all that's required. Working to the point where you realize, I can't do this. There's an I here that can't do anything. Why? Because this I has no action in it. This I is the divine through which everything is presenting itself in my awareness. And the beloved that I thought was me watching my mind, the beloved who I thought was me experiencing my sensual life, the beloved who was the I who had all of my relationships, who loved all of the people around me, that self that I stupidly thought was me has always been my beloved. That's why he's so close that he can hear the anklets on an ant. That's why the Upanishads say he is so close, he's closer to you than your neck. That is such a weird thing to say. I love that image. God is closer to you than your neck. Why? Because it is God living your life. You are the thing in your life that is not real. You have constructed an ego to enjoy God's life, to enjoy God's body, to enjoy God's relationships, to enjoy God's work, to enjoy his flowers, his sky, his trees, all of this. You're like that little puppy, you know, that when you throw your friend a ball, a little puppy jumps up and grabs the ball as if you were throwing it to him. You were throwing it to your roommate and the dog caught the ball. And he's all happy and runs around with the dog. That's you. That's your ego. God is living this amazing life, something you can't begin to explain, something you can't even begin to unfold. Just the moment, the fact that you're aware, what an inexplicable thing that is. The fact that you can see a thought. How can you see a thought? You don't even know what one is. You don't even know where it comes from, and yet you see it all day long. You see them everywhere. You have this idea of lights and this idea of sounds. You have no idea. You are fundamentally 100% clueless about all of it. You have no idea where it's coming from, how it's happening, where it's going, why it's happening. And you sit there, and yet we just glimly, this is my life. I'm in charge. I make my decisions. Decisions of what? What you do is simply get attached or be averse to things that are presented to you. That's all you've done in your whole life. You have never actually done anything. You've only actually accepted or rejected something presented to you. That's all you've done. And in the midst of that, you've built a little tower that says life is better if it's done this way. And so you sit there in misery half the times because life is just coming at you. And you've built a little tower saying, only if it's this way am I happy. Only if it's this way am I content. All you've done is that in your grand accomplishment of life. I don't care what job you seem to be in. It's just being presented to you, one experience after another, and the only thing you're doing is accepting or rejecting one presentation after another, over and over and over again. And the joy does not exist in what is going under the needle on the record player. That's not where the joy is. That's arbitrary. Your life could be anything and is anything. Each one of you is the playing of a different record. But it's the same needle. It's the same needle lying on the record in each one of us. And the joy is in realizing that there's nothing to be done except to be aware at all times that this beloved is constantly present in you. Time is endless, though limited. This is Sri Nisargadatta talking. Time is endless, though limited. Eternity is in the split moment of the now. We miss it because the mind is ever shuttling between the past and the future. It will not stop to focus on now. It can be done with comparative ease if interest is aroused. If you start paying attention. Now this idea, we've talked about this extensively, this idea of our mind bouncing back and forth between the past and the future, which is why none of us are present. And why is that? Because to experience any kind of change or movement, we have to constantly take the impression and compare it to the moment, right? That impression is your past, right? And the future is yours to fix the present with. That's why it exists, you see? So we've talked about it in the past. Someone yell out, what is your past? Thank you. That's exactly it. Your past is your attachments. This flow of life that's being presented to you one after the other, you grab things. I like that. The pizza, that's pretty good. That song, that's a really good one. Oh, that person, yes, that's the one for me. You collect these things. And what do you do with them? You're immortal, and you're being presented with temporary things. What do you want to do? You want to share your immortality with them, right? You want that girlfriend or boyfriend to be there always. You want that particular flower to be there always. You want that particular food to be there always. So what do? You share your immortality with them, right? You take that thing and you make an impression and you put it in your immortal mind, as it were. And you can call it up at any time you want. That's your attachment, and that's your sense of the past. Your sense of the past is just the things that you wouldn't lay down as they flowed through the moment. They're the things that you thought were necessary for your happiness, for your growth, for your education, for your development, for your enjoyment, whatever it was. So your past is only a collection of attachments, things you couldn't let go of, things this moment that are the things that Swamiji is daring you to set down, daring you to free yourself from the definition of what you are that determines what you collect and what you reject. So your past is nothing but a collection of attachments, and your future is what? Desire. Your desires. How do you say that? Why do we say that? Because of the pizza story, right? Everybody knows the pizza story. You're walking along, the day's great. I feel perfect. Everything is wonderful. The sun's shining, the breeze, there's the ocean, everything's great. And then you smell pizza. Right? If you don't have an attachment to pizza, all that's happened is you've got a beautiful smell added to a beautiful day, and now you're more content than ever. But if you've got an attachment for pizza, you don't see it that way. What do you see? An imperfect moment that would only be perfect if I had a pizza. Right? So your attachments that you've pulled up out of the past because you smelled something beautiful in the present are now making you unhappy because you don't have any pizza. You can smell it, but you don't have it. Now you've got to get it. So now you've got to borrow something called a future. Because now you've got to come up with the plan of how do I manifest pizza? How do I manifest pizza in my moment? How do I bring it into my unperfect day to make it perfect? So you borrow from the future and you come up with an idea of how to bring it around. So you see, you've created your sense of past by looking at your attachments. You've got your sense of future because of all the desires that you still have to fulfill and bring into reality. And in the meantime, you're bouncing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I smell pizza instead of enjoying the moment and being fully present and saying, what a beautiful smell has been added to my beautiful day. You're looking at your past. Oh my God, there's no pizza in my present. Now you're looking at your future. We've got to come up and get some pizza. And you're just bouncing back and forth. And your whole life is wasted bouncing back and forth between your attachments and your desires. And what are you overlooking every time you bounce back and forth? More personal than that. Your beloved. This moment is your beloved. It is the divine. It is God. And you can't see him because you're going past, future, past, future, past, future, past, future. And you're never here. You never feel God pumping the blood through your body. You never feel the love that's sitting just behind the curtain of everything that you think. You never experience the peace that's just behind the desires that are continually distracting you. You're never able to relax into the wonder of being because you're so destroyed by the constant necessity of doing. Humble people be. Egoed people do. Does that mean we sit and do nothing? Who can? Who can do nothing? You know, that wheel of samskara will continue to turn, but you can take that repose and watch it happen and realize that all of it's just being presented to me. And then what happens? You're not made of wood so that nothing happens. You are a manifestation of God. You're a manifestation of your dearest ideal, of the beloved. And when you stop the ego of doing, what you experience is the spontaneous wonder of being. You will love without the conditions imposed by your body and mind. You will care without the imposition of body and mind. You will distribute an infinite well of love spontaneously because it's what you are, because it is the very nature of yourself, this beloved, this highest ideal. So in this moment, in this present moment, what about cause and effect? If the past really doesn't exist, if it's just a conception of mind, and the future isn't real, it's just a tool that I'm using to bring about the fulfillment of desire, the only thing real is the moment. Well, how does cause and effect happen in a moment? Someone asked Sri Nisargadatta, what about cause and effect? And Sri Nisargadatta says, each moment contains the whole of the past and creates the whole of the future. Every single event in history of any planet, of any star, of any molecule, of any atom has been necessary for this moment. It is fully implicated here. It exists fully only in the present. The past only exists in the present. When you think of it or remember it, what are you doing? You're bringing it into the present. So for past to have its function, for past to have its effect, it has to be part of the moment. It has to be inferred in the moment. So all of the past exists here and now, and all of your future exists here and now. So if all of your future is here and all of your past is here, what are you remembering and where are you going? Be in them. Be present in them. Each moment contains the whole past and creates the whole of the future. But past and future exist, the questioner asks. Maharaj says, in the mind only. Time is in the mind. Space is in the mind. The law of cause and effect is also just a way of thinking. In reality, all is here and now, and all is one. Multiplicity and diversity are in the mind only. The questioner says, yeah, that might be true, but you're still in favor of relieving suffering, even through destruction of the incurably diseased body. M says again, you look from the outside, while I look from the inside. I do not see a sufferer. I am the sufferer. I know him from within and do what is right spontaneously and effortlessly because he's discarded the ego. So he sees someone suffering. That's our experience, right? We see from the outside in. We see first a body. And it's funny because when you think about yourself, who do you describe? If I say, who are you? What are you going to tell me? I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this old, I'm this young, I do this work, I want to this, I enjoy these things, I don't. What are you doing? You're seeing yourself from the outside in. Why are you doing that? Your experience of life is not from the outside in. Your experience of what you are is from the inside out, but you can't describe that. Why? One, because you've never paid attention to it, right? We're just looking constantly, flipping past, future, past, future, past, future. And because the self doesn't do anything, doesn't move, doesn't change. It's perfect. It's content. It's whole. It doesn't need the body. It doesn't need the mind. So it's not making any noise to catch your attention. It's not jumping up and down like a toddler saying, I'm over here, see me over here and you'll realize. It's just sitting there, letting everything be presented to it. God himself, enjoying every moment of your life as he sees it all and is yet utterly unaffected by it. Just seeing the reflection in a mirror of infinite love, of infinite intelligence, of infinite being. Once you are inwardly integrated, outer knowledge comes to you spontaneously. At every moment of your life, you know what you need to know. In the ocean of the universal mind, all knowledge is contained. It is yours on demand. Most of it you may never need to know, but it is yours all the same. And as with knowledge, so it is with power. Whatever you feel needs be done happens unfailingly, no doubt. God attends to this business of managing the universe, but he's glad to have some help. When the helper is selfless and intelligent, all the powers of the universe are for him to command. This takes a bit of an adjustment. Because we're constantly in the habit of dealing with the world from the outside in. And when the world comes to us from the outside in, it feels like, oh my God, we have to do all these things. We have to get everything taken care of. But when you realize that no matter what, it's just a presentation to an infinite immortal self. There's nothing to be done. There's nothing that has to happen. That at that point, when you disempower the sense of ego, the false sense of me, and you resign that, you lay it down, and admit that I am only God, which means what? I'm only loving, I'm only intelligent, I'm only existing. Then that loving intelligence of existence will take over spontaneously and feed the world. Be what you need to be. How do you know that? You look at Thakur, Ramakrishna, you look at Jesus, you look at Buddha, you look at Krishna, you look at Rama. They were people who did nothing. They were people who had no ego, who knew the moment to be perfect as it was. And what shone through them, we can't forget. What shone through them, the world can't forget. Believe in him or not, you know the name of Jesus, you know the name of Ramakrishna, you know the name of Buddha. The world cannot deny them because we saw something more beautiful in the spontaneous manifestation of their lives than we have ever seen in the 1,000 years since. Do your work. When you have a moment free, look within. What is important is not to miss the opportunity when it presents itself. If you are earnest, you will use your leisure fully. That is enough. That is enough. You know, when Mother says you can have your realization this very moment if you want it, if you're interested. How do you know whether you're interested or not? What do you do with your free time? Do you go enjoy Mother for a few minutes? Do you sit down and think, oh, I've got a moment just to enjoy being? Or does the iPad come out? The Nintendo gets fired up. The book comes down off the shelf. Now I can do whatever I want. I'm free. I can slave myself to my desires. Thank goodness. No, be earnest, and we always talk about that as one of the three most important things, earnestness and sincerity. If you're earnest and sincere in your spiritual life, it's what you do when you're free. It's what you do when you're free. So if it's not what you're doing when you're free, that's just a call to inquiry, that's all. It's just a call to inquiry. And what does that mean? That means take a look at the things you are spending your time on and look at them soberly. Look at them with your whole self and see what they're giving you. See if it really does mean something to you. See if it really does bring happiness to your life. See if it really does accomplish what you think it's accomplishing. Test it to make sure that it's not only distracting you. The sages say that this world has only two powers. It's really just the same power. It's the power of forgetfulness. Through forgetfulness, we constantly think things are feeding us that are not feeding us. Through forgetfulness, we constantly redo the things we swore we would never do again. Through forgetfulness. So be earnest. In your free time, look within. What does that mean? That means see God. For a moment, stop your attachments, stop your desires. Understand the moment to be perfect. And how do you do that? Just by letting it be perfect. Let yourself be perfect. Let yourself be content. And when the mind starts to flash up the reason that you're not, shut it up and look within again. Don't look out, look in. And enjoy these things. Be free. Be absolutely free. When did this dream begin? And Nisargadatta says, it appears to be beginningless, but in fact it is only now. From moment to moment you are renewing it. Once you have seen that you are dreaming, you will wake up, but you do not see, because you want the dream to continue. A day will come when you long for the ending of the dream with all of your heart and with all of your mind, and you will be willing to pay any price. The price will be dispassion and detachment, the loss of interest in the dream itself. And how does this maturity come about? By keeping your mind clear and clean, by living your life in full awareness of every moment as it happens, by examining and dissolving one's desires and fears as soon as they arise. Let this experience be presented to you. Interpret every moment as perfect and challenge any vestige of mind or body that challenges the notion of this moment being perfect. That's when you pull in your renunciation. No, this moment is perfect. I am free. I have no desire because I'm not going to see myself from the outside in. I'm going to be that ever-present, ever-blissful Satchit Ananda. This union that you want with the earth and the sky, this union we all need with love. A golden wing from God's heart just touched the ground. Now step upon it with your brave sun vows and help our eyes to dance. Just let yourself respond to the presence of your beloved and feel that response. That is an endless joy. And just enjoying this moment will bring about enough bliss that it will overwhelm your sense of ego. It will overwhelm your sense of smallness. And you will be lost in the ecstasy of the sages as they described the beloved. Let's take a few moments to sit with that and to think about it. amazing thing is that there really is something to this. You really can have that experience. And it's not a matter of being allowed to. There's an experiment that you can do, and it's very interesting to watch the mind, because the mind will make all of the scriptures obvious to you. If you begin watching how it acts and the way that it works, all of the scriptures write themselves for you when you see. If you sit there and you're having a bad day, you're having a bad moment, you're lost in a mood, and you just determine, I'm going to sit here and just be fully present, and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be content. I'm going to be full of joy. The first thing the mind does is pull up a whole list of reasons that it's not going to let you be that way. But you see, you have all of the power. If you listen to the mind, you're sharing your power with the mind. You're giving a piece of your I to the mind that makes it seem like it exists and that it has an opinion and that it has a desire. It does not. It's only a movie. It's only a presentation. Pull that I back. Hold that I here and tell the mind, I do not need your permission to be happy. I do not need your permission to be content. And the same with the body. The exact same with the body. When it's sitting there saying, I gotta have a relationship. I've gotta get this, I gotta do that. You can split your power and give half to the body and give it a seeming existence and a seeming authority with a sense of desire. That's what our trouble is. That's what identity is. It's when you take a part of yourself and you assign it to something else. The only thing we assign it to is body-mind, right? I'm going to go on for another hour if I keep up with that. So let's talk about our center this week. We got a lot of things going on. Of course, our two fearless leaders are away, Swami A and B. Swami A, as you know, is in Sydney, Australia, visiting Sri Dharanandaji. And Swami B is holding up the fort out in Houston for 2 weeks. So we will go ahead and have Wednesday night and Friday night classes and the Wednesday morning class, but the Tuesday morning and the Thursday morning classes are on hold until they return. And the Wednesday night classes will follow the same texts, but will kind of be placeholder presentations so that they can pick up where they left off when they come back. So I won't disturb their flow of teaching. All right, so this next weekend, Dr. Jeffrey Long is going to be here talking to us. So this is going to be a great lecture for you intellectuals. Relativity and the Harmony of Religions, Reflections on Einstein and Vedanta. So that's next week. We've got Ramnam coming up on March 7th at 7:30. That's next Saturday night here, right? So Ramnam will be here on Saturday. No Tuesday discussion. Wednesday, there will be a Practice of the Presence of God class at 11 in the living room, and a Wednesday night class on the Viveka Chudamani. We might just look at some of the verses that we've already covered and just discuss them from a different perspective, or from lighting the room in a different way, let's say. No Thursday class. Friday night class will be the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna this week. And then Saturday is our Karma Yoga Day. All right, so those are the opportunities, and I always like to remind you, everybody, anytime a new person comes through the door of our center, I'm always so happy to tell them, this place exists for you. This place does not have a predetermined purpose. We do not have our definition of what this place is and how it's going to affect you. That's for you. And actually all of the classes that are carried on here have been by request. People want to learn about this. They want to know about that. And so this place is yours, truly and fully yours. So come and enjoy it as much as you can. So many people are these days, and it is really a great opportunity to see that. It's wonderful when people come just to sit and read in the living room, or to make themselves some tea and come sit in the bookshop, or the number of times I stumble on somebody alone in the shrine here, or even sometimes downstairs in the big hall. So make this place your own and really use it. Mother has made it happen out of your devotion, out of your dedication. So this beautiful, beautiful place, in so many ways, is here for you. And I want to emphasize that. Let that be part of your fortress, a part of your growth. And it's so encouraging to us that are living here to see that. So with all of that in mind, I offer this to Ma, Thakur, and Swamiji, and invite you downstairs to enjoy each other's company and some tea and some coffee. Jai Ma, Jai Thakur.